Thank you. Thank you. So glad to have you back. So yesterday we had a beautiful memorial service here for Sigrid Farwell Ramsos. And if you were here, it just felt like she was someone who helped us all feel the sense of belonging. She's an incredible woman, and we honored her yesterday. And so I went home. When I went home, I went for a run. I needed a break between the service and then preparing for this morning. And I went for a run around Sloan's Lake, and I was almost about 3/4 of the way past, and I was starting to get a little annoyed because I always say hi to people, and people hardly ever say hi back, hardly ever. And I was just like, what is wrong with people? Why can't they just say hello? It's so hard to say hello. And most of them have what do you call earbuds, and they don't hear me saying hello. I should recognize this. But, every once in a while I get somebody like, hey, hi, how you doing? And it makes me feel so good, but not last night. Last night, everybody was in their own world with their I'm not saying it right. Earbuds. Sorry, words escaped me. Anyway, I'm about 3/4 of the way feeling kind of discouraged at the world, for lack of hellos. And I hear behind me, I hear this man say, "Are you trying to run with her?" And I kind of just look a little, and here's this little boy, and he's probably 2.5 or 3, and he's running, and he keeps looking at me, and he's smiling, and his dad's behind him trying to keep up, and said, "You're running with her." And I go, "You're running with me," and he's just smiling, like this huge smile on her, and he's laughing, and he's having so much fun. I said, "You're a really good runner," and he said, "I know." I go, "You're really fast," and he said, "I know." I said, "Well, you keep it up. You're doing really good." And the dad's trying to rein him in, bring him back to where they were having a little family thing. And he just wouldn't stop, and he's running right, and I slowed down my pace so he would be right with me. I'm like, "You're so good." And I said, I stopped to go, "You give me a high five, because I'm so proud of you." And we high five. We missed the first time. "Let's do that again." So it was so cute, and the dad's like, "Come on," and I think we're done, and so I go on my way, and he's still running with me. But that just put me on such a high. Kids, they feel like they belong everywhere. They belong. They just belong, and they're so precious. And that was just the best thing that could have happened last night while I was on this run. Because, that's not how the world is a lot of times, or it's not the way we see the world when we listen to the news or, get all caught up in all the stuff going on in the world. That I just read an article this week that we have a loneliness epidemic. There was an article that just came out this week, and it said that 1 in 2 people are feeling really lonely. 50% of people are feeling really lonely, and this was before the pandemic. This was before we felt isolated. And in the article, the Surgeon General came out, and I wanted to make sure I get the percentages right, that the risk for premature death from loneliness is about equal to smoking 15 cigarettes a day. That we have a 29% increased risk of heart disease, a 32% increased risk of stroke, and a 50% increased risk of developing dementia for older adults when we're lonely, when we don't connect with others, when we don't have that sense of belonging. And young people aged 15 to 24 had a 70% less social interaction with their friends since the pandemic. There's so much loneliness. There's so much need to connect. We're hardwired to want to connect with others. Having a sense of belonging is a basic human need for all of us. that we need to feel a sense of belonging. We want to create this culture of connection. We need something bigger than ourselves to belong to. We're not meant to be alone. So there's this great book. I was first introduced to this. It's called The Boy, the Mole, the Fox, and the Horse by Charlie Mackesy. And I was first introduced it by Anne, who read a part of it and asked us one of the probing questions from the book in one of our staff meetings. And I was so intrigued with this book that I bought it. We have a couple copies in our bookstore. I bought it here. And then not long after that, Susan Landau sent me an email. I don't know if she's here. She might be watching online. She sent me an email with a link to the movie. There's a 30-minute short animated film based on this book. And it's such a beautiful book about a boy, a mole, a fox, and a horse, and how they are all different, and yet they're friends. And in the very beginning of the movie, and pretty close to the beginning of the book, the boy says, "I'm lost." I think a lot of us feel lost in our lives a lot. I think a lot of us feel that way, and so when we come into a community like this, and people are friendly and welcoming, we feel like we've come home. We hear that comment a lot, that I feel like I'm home. I feel like I belong. And the boy and the mole, all of these characters represent parts of us. The boy is inquisitive. He has lots of questions. He's very curious. He wants to know about life. He wants to know about things things that he questions. And the mole is playful. The mole's our playful self. The mole just wants cake. The mole's looking for cake everywhere. And then the fox comes along, and the fox has been hurt in the past, and the fox is angry at first until he starts feeling like he's welcomed. But in the beginning, he's angry because he's so hurt. His wounds are coming out. And then the horse is the biggest one, but the most gentle. You see, we all have these aspects of these characters in us. And the horse is really wise. The mole asks the boy, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" And the boy says, "Kind." I want to be kind. Don't we all want to be kind? The horse, I could do a whole talk just on this book, but I got other stuff, so I'm trying to keep it a little brief. So the horse says, "I've never told anyone this," and he's telling the fox and the boy and the mole, "I have wings. But when I let my wings out, other horses get jealous." And the boy and the fox and the mole say, "We like you, we love you the way you are." And the horse lets his wings come out and he flies them all around. And it's so beautiful, because how many times do we not let our own light shine because we don't want others to feel jealous or feel bad or not like us, or maybe they think we're boasting, when really we're just being our true, authentic selves. And that's what we're here to do, to be our true, authentic selves. The boy asked the horse, "Do you have any advice?" And the horse says, "Don't measure how valuable you are by the way you are treated. Always remember you matter, you're important, and you are loved, and you bring to this world things no one else can." No one else can. And so, not to kind of I'm kind of giving away the end of the story, but they realize that they are a family, that they belong, that they're all different, And they don't try to change each other, but they love each other just the way they are, just for who they are. And they belong, and they have this little family. And it's so sweet. I strongly encourage you to read the book. They're a little different. The book and the movie are a little different. The movie needs a journey, so they're on a journey. The book is not quite like that. But this morning I started watching a documentary on the author, Charles Mackesy, and he's a scruffy old artist, and that's how they describe him, that's how he describes himself. And it's just fascinating how this all came to be, how he just was curious about belonging, about connection. He has lots of sculptures where there are people hugging each other. The mole says in the book, you know what's better than cake? A hug. A hug. Because then we know we're connected. Then we know we belong. And so often in our lives, we've probably many of you had times in your lives where you don't feel like you belong. And you try to fit in. And when we try to fit in, we're changing who we are. We're trying to be like the group. We're trying to be like everyone else instead of belonging, which is knowing our authentic selves, being our authentic selves to belong. Brene Brown talks a lot about this in Braving the Wilderness, talks about how our true selves know we belong. Our true selves already know this. But so often we just try to force ourselves to fit into groups because we want to have that sense of belonging, but we never really feel like we belong when we try to change ourselves to fit the group. She says this in that book, Braving the Wilderness. True belonging is the spiritual practice of believing in and belonging to yourself so deeply that you can share your most authentic self with the world and find sacredness in both being a part of something and standing alone in the wilderness. True belonging doesn't require you to change who you are. It requires you to be who you are. We need to be who we are. Be who we are. And so often we don't do that. I was reading an article of an interview of James Doty. He's a neurosurgeon. And he was talking about how in evolution humanity has evolved to need this connection, that we need each other. That most creatures in our world, their offspring, they just, they're born and then they're on their own. And in our culture, in humanity, we, 2 decades about to have our offspring before we propel them out on their own. We nurture them, we take care of them. And that we need this in our lives. We're hardwired for this. The neural pathways that are created as a result when we connect with others make us feel good. In fact, they talked about how when you're at work and you get interrupted because somebody wants to show you a picture of their new kitten or their grandchild, or they want to chat, or we can feel a little stressed and lose productivity, but what are we creating with those interruptions? Those interruptions are actually good for us. They're good for us because we feel like we belong, like we're part of something, like we're part of a group. And so James Doty talked about how when people are isolated, their whole world falls apart. They fall apart because we need each other. We need this sense of belonging. And he said, we can spend all this time alone, and alone time is good, and we can have tremendous transformation in our lives just by being on our own, just by being ourselves and turning within. But we're not going to have transcendence unless we bring it out, unless we share it, unless we're in connection with other people. And we need both. We need both the inner work and to bring it out, which is all what Unity's fifth principle is about. It's not enough to learn all this and to change our ways of thinking and broadening our perspective and increasing our belief system, but we have to bring it out in service, in volunteerism, in connection, in friendship, in partnership. Bring it all out. And that's when we have transcendence. Then we can, when we're accepting of ourselves in that way, when we're accepting who we are, because we've done this inner work and then we bring it out into the world, then we're creating something that has a lot of meaning, not only for us, but for others. Then when we can see that in ourselves, we can more likely see it in others. Unity's second principle is there's a divine spark in each one of us. So we have to know it's in us. Be authentically ourselves, as Brené Brown says, and then we can accept others the way they are, their authentic selves. And they don't have to be like us. We're not all the same. Thank goodness we're not all the same. We had our first Jodi Awareness Workshop on Thursday here in Foss Hall, and we had over 50 people in the room, and my heart was wide open for this, wide open that this many people want to expand their awareness, expand their way of thinking, be more welcoming, be more accepting of people who may not think or look or behave like we do. And during that workshop, we did an exercise with puzzles. So each table had a box of just a small puzzle, like 24 pieces. And as we were in each group, so we were supposed to put the puzzles together. And as we're putting the puzzles together, we're realizing that we have a piece here that is missing. Or we have a piece here that doesn't quite fit our particular puzzle. And then, I don't know who did it first, but some brilliant person at some table realized that somebody had mixed the pieces up in the boxes. And you had to go to the other tables. And we had to work with each other, that we had to find the pieces that belonged and then give the pieces that didn't belong to another group. And it's all good. It was all good. It was beautiful. It was a great exercise that we need each other and that each of us is a piece of the puzzle of life. And nobody is quite like us. Nobody has our beliefs, our exact belief system, our exact experience, our exact character flaws. Nobody is like us, and we're needed for the whole picture to be filled in. It was a beautiful exercise. I found this quote a couple days ago, which I thought was so appropriate to us. And it is Tim Shriver and who else? Because I don't have it, I don't remember. Anyway, in this world that we're creating together, nobody has to fit in because everybody already belongs. Unity is not the opposite of diversity. Unity requires diversity. Unity is the truth of sacred scripture. It's the truth of oral indigenous peoples. It's the truth written in our hearts that we can test in our lives when we feel separate. When we feel separate, we suffer. That's why we find happiness in belonging. We are one. No one can be left out. We were made to be together. There it is, Tim Shriver and Tom Rochert, the call to unite. That is so true of this Jodi Awareness workshops that we're offering, and here in this community, that we need all of us to make this community what it is. Everybody is welcome, everyone belongs. Today we're going to be welcoming our new voting members. They've decided to level up their commitment to Columbine. They want to be voting members here. And so we're going to be introducing them. So grateful. So are you feeling lost? Are you feeling lost? Or do you feel like you belong? Are you letting your true, authentic self out so that you can belong anywhere? That is the invitation. Be your true self. Your true self knows you belong. Your true self knows this. So let it be. Let it be. We are the face of God. We are. Namaste.